going to be rolling on here on Stream 8. We got 2 more matches for you today, and both of them involve Furia. If you're a big fan of the LATAM team, you're going to love this because you've got another pseudo-LATAM team in XSET coming up first. Before we get into that match, you might want to know where we're standing in Charlotte, but then the actual standings for you that will materialize over your screen, because things are gonna start happening. See, they're gonna start happening. We got a log jam here in this group. Look at Furia, XSET, Cyclops Athlete Gaming.
Damn.
In Group B, all at 3 points. Nicholas.
There's also be decided here.
There is.
Tons, actually.
XSET's last match of the day could give them 6 points. Furia could end up finishing the day at 9 points, which, as far as we're aware, does not knock either of these teams out. If Furia beats XSET in this match and then Cyclops in the next match, from our understanding, because the round differential is what matters the most, and there are still 6 points left on the table tomorrow, it is possible that neither Team Liquid nor Furia, who will finish the day possibly at 9 points, would end up clinching their spot. But obviously, we don't need to go into that because here are your rosters for you. You know XSET, they played earlier today. Yaga, Diaz, Spirits, Kino, and Gomez. And after the match that Spirits had, he's going to be looking to redeem himself. Kino carried the way, almost breaking 20 kills. XSET repped the set. We're one of the strongest teams in the North American League, finishing 3rd overall. They had a strong mid to late part of the season if they had some early stumbles.
They did, and that's the thing about XSET is that they're very aggressive. And then you look at their opponents right now in Furia, also very aggressive. But the big question when it comes to the American team here is on the attacking side, that's where everybody was wondering, will they be a team that can put up really good attacks with good strategy to back it up? Because XSET doesn't have the most experienced players in the roster in terms of like leadership and longevity in the space, but they have friendship. And friendship can really take you a very long distance, as we always make fun of regarding this team.
The power of friendship. Their opponents, by the way, are a team called Furia Esports, hailing from Brazil, playing out of Mexico on this LAN build, as was mentioned earlier on. This was a team that qualified for a variety of LAN events last year. They have a different look in the offseason. On March 7th, they dropped Lenda and Highs from the roster and picked up Handy and STK. And guess what? It didn't really change all that much in terms of their standings. They're still a top 4 team, and they've done okay. They finished 3rd in Copa Elite 6. They finished 3rd overall in Brazil. Here are the map bans for you, by the way. Bank is where we're going to go. We've been going through this weird cycle today.
We have.
Where teams tend to play on Bank or on Theme Park, and then everybody else plays on Theme Park, and then we go to Border, and then everybody else plays on Border. We go to Oregon, everybody else plays on Oregon.
There's a pattern.
BDS and Chiefs on the other stream just concluded their matchup, and by Jove, they went to Bank, and we go back to Bank again.
That we do. Bank, honestly, is an exciting map for a couple of reasons, because both of these teams have played this map before. XSET in the NAL played it twice, 1 victory, 1 loss, pretty standard stuff. But Furia played it 3 times in the last 3 months, 100% win rate. They won all 3 of those games, which means XSET might be in trouble on this situation of the map pick.
I mean, the thing with XSET is that they haven't looked anywhere near as dominant internationally as they did look domestically. Domestically, XSET were not just competitive, but they were winning most of their games. And when they lost or they were behind, they were still very much in it. One of the things I was proudest of about this young upstart XSET roster with 2 rookies on the team in both Diaz and Gomez is that they were able to stick with their opponents. Even when they were down, you could never count out XSET. Furia is a very similar team internationally, and the big reason for that is fantasy. Fantasy is always capable of stealing you around. But don't discredit Miracle either, because the contributions might not look as flashy as fantasy, but Miracle can be a highly impactful player. XSET at this event, well, they started out 4-0 against Liquid, and then lost 7-5. In the next 8 rounds, they won a single round. That's dreadful. You need to be able to stick with your opponents. And that was just today. XSET have looked like a shadow of themselves, and that's what we come to expect with teams who are playing internationally for the first time. 3 of their players have played internationally before. 2 of them with OXG, that's Kino and Yaga, and then Spirits playing on Parabellum at SI 2021. But they are still a new team, and they have those early land shakes.
It is, and I mean, we're slowly getting through it, right? It is the quote-unquote the tail end of day 2 of the Charlotte Major. You mentioned Miracle and Fantasy from the side of Fury, and
I did mention them.
you did
That's
mention
correct.
them.
I did.
I think Miracle is like the consistent factor for the team, whereas Fantasy is like that super flashy, giga high risk, giga high reward kind of player, and he is arguably, in my opinion, the most aggressive entry that we've seen in recent time in Rainbow Six Siege. It is always, 10 meters in front of his drones, nobody behind him, taking 1v1s, getting so much map control so quickly for his team. But sometimes, unfortunately, it also goes the way of a similar team like Damwon Kia, where you have Rin going much far forward, he dies, you play 4v5. There is that same issue sometimes with Fantasy and Furia, where sometimes he's a little bit too far forward.
I mean, the focus is always on Fantasy as a player, but
Always.
he's not been the best performer. It's Miracle who has the best stats on the team.
Yes, by far, actually.
By a huge margin. And Fantasy is very much feast or famine. He gets in the building and he kills 2 people, but he almost immediately dies. His survival rate is horrendous.
Yep.
19% survival rate for Fantasy. So while he is this high flyer, while he can steal rounds, well,
He's never alive.
there are a lot of times where it's like he goes in, he either dies or he gets a kill and then dies as well. There's very little in between. That's why a player like Miracle, whose survival rate is literally double it at 38%, who has a much healthier kill-death ratio, because you go in and then you don't immediately impact the earth like a comet. You have a little bit more ability to survive and make space and help your team. As for a team like Furia, they need a good performance out of Fantasy, because it's unlikely that a player like Spirits is going to have another bad game. Kino took to Twitter after the matchup and said that it's very hard to IGL at the level that Spirits does while also playing effectively. And yeah, Spirits is playing Finka. Every Finka player plays well, and Finka's stats are crazy good. Spirits had a one-off. Don't repeat that process again, and I guarantee you we're going to have a much closer matchup between these two teams. But let's not delay any of the potential festivities. We'll load in a bank. The map, well, it's in LA, funny enough. On this continent, will XSET have home field advantage in a map in the metaverse? Who knows?
Stop saying that.
I love the metaverse, man. What
You
can I
love
say?
it. It's too much.
I love it.
Have fun, as you see in the chat there. Osa immediately banned down, of course, is an operator that we've seen XSET play a couple of times in the past, and it's more of like a pocket pick operator. You can pick it on bank and go for a straight server attack. For top floor attacks, gives you nice lines of sight as well. That's going to be off the board. Nuke, similar story. Most teams will play Nuke at least one round when they're on the attacking side of bank to sneak around the map and work around that information game that you have with default cameras or other information ops like Valkyrie or Echo. Neither will see play, which means the pockets are empty, but we got more operators to go through. Mira follows next, first defending operator off the board, which leave a very undesirable, probably Valkyrie ban. If we had to be
Valkyrie,
cheeky here.
maybe Wamai.
Oh, never mind.
All right, things are going to get spicy
I
in
like
here.
that.
3 operators that have a very low ban rate that tend to be pocket bans depending on the map or the team they're playing against. I like that you point out the ability for Nook to fly under the radar. Her ability shields her, or rather cloaks her from cameras and other gadgets that are designed to see you. Yeah, there's a little bit of a shimmer effect that can give you an idea that there's a Nook in the general vicinity, but other than that, yeah, she's very effective on big maps. And what is Bank? I still believe Bank is the biggest map in the map pool. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But because it's a big map with tons of big open rooms, Nook is not just effective on this bomb site, which is the bottom floor bomb site. Nook is also very effective at getting into lobby quickly.
Yes.
Or getting into stock trading upstairs very quickly. You can also just go through the garage, go up blue stairs, and then you're already on the first floor in square stairwell. And guess what? You can wreak havoc.
It's funny because if you go back like before, so Bang was removed from the competitive map pool, now it's in again. If you go back to before it got taken out a few years ago, Jackal was the operator that was always banned because it made the map so simple. If you are roaming, you can walk in top square, look for feet on the staircases, and then you would know, okay, they have a roamer or not. Now Nuke is kind of taking that role instead, but for a much different reason, as you mentioned, Parker, and it's a stable operator on this map now as time has progressed. STK getting aggressive, not for a spawn peek before, Jonah might be hiding in that flower pot plant outside the double dwarf square. Handy here at the main stairs as well. So early aggression from Furia, trying to find drones and deny those rotations. So far, they've only killed a single drone, so not a lot of damage has been done just yet.
You still got 4 in the pockets of XSET. On a map like Bank, get used to seeing almost all of these drones being employed at some point. As for the Furia lineup, nothing really all that odd out of a basement defense. Smoke, great for the anti-plant. As running nitro cells that might be in the hands of defenders, in which there are 2, one for the Kaid of Rare, and one for the Goyo of Handy. Additionally, the changes to Goyo have made him almost a better pick than he used to be on this map, because you've got those Goyo canisters that can go anywhere, and when they blow up, that fire lasts for 20 seconds, which in Rainbow Six Siege feels like eternity.
Oh, it is. I mean, you got 3 of them, right? So effectively, if you want to combine those numbers, you can die over 60 seconds, a full minute worth of time. Now, of course, stacking all 3 in the same position means they all die together from a single explosive. They're not super recommendable. We see Rare now trying to figure out exactly what hatch will be opened up first. You can deny a few pellets. I doubt they're going to be using an exothermic charge for the hatch. Normally those get saved for later on inside of server. And of course, if that's the case, you got the Maverick Gomez that can actually use his torch from the Maverick to do some quick work of those hatches instead. And that's exactly what they're going to be doing. While Yag will hold the blue stairs because there is a player there sitting tight. It's Miracle on the smoke with STK inside the server holding it down. That's the first line of defense for Furia and the first big problem for XSET to solve.
I love hearing the yelps of a Maverick, by the way. Ha! Oh! Gomez is having...
Not a pretty time.
Gomez is having some problems.
But he's getting there.
He's already used half of the canister that he has, the gas tank, and it might not be pretty, but it works, and that's kind of my motto. So he gets the hatch open, and just like that, server is much easier to attack. So you want to burn out the ADSs. There's Jaeger playing behind the server stack. Have they given up an idea of the smoke being there? Oh no, Spirits, the grenade does the work that your gun can't, and the smoke of Miracle gets punched out as well. Gomez and Spirits walk right in, 2 big picks, and they've got server control. Adrenal Surge hits, and it leaves the 3 remaining players from Furia inside of the bomb site to contend against whatever XSET wants to throw at them. It also sounds like an exothermic charge went off, which is the default plant spot now opened up. It forces the Goyo container to blow, which means 20 seconds of those flames. Smokes will put Furia in a tough spot, but look at that. Rare is prepared for Kino. He drops Diffuser, needs to be planted. Gomez has access to that, and there he goes. But he's taken down by a Nitro cell. Adrenal Surge goes off, 4 seconds left. This one's real messy. XSET needs to take the gunfights, but Fantasy swatting them all away, and the time runs out, giving Furia the win. Close, but no cigar for XSET. A masterful performance as XSET tries to get the diffuser down, and Furia says no.
A near perfect showcasing of just how chaotic the basement of Bank can be when you're trying to plant with less than 20 seconds left. And actually, the Goyo canister that was put there in the prep phase played a massive factor, because once the wall got opened up by the exothermic charge from Kino and the Thermite, well, that stalled out 20 seconds for the attacking side and had to punch in the execute at 14 seconds remaining. They dropped the hatch, smokes went out, started planting, but a C4 that was carefully tossed through the smoke grenade killed 1 person, injured the second, and further stalled out the execute. And that is why Furia managed to get the win of that round, because the timer simply hit 0. 1-0 currently. We're gonna go to the open area bomb site that most teams prefer to play on, and I think we're gonna see a lot of play here as well in this matchup.
Astralis is getting warmed up for their match. It's going to be occurring on the other stream. They're going to be playing against Chiefs. It's the last match of the B stream, and there's actually some heavy implications there, because if Astralis wins, they will be the 2nd team to clinch their spot in the playoffs after OXG did so earlier today, and it will also send Chiefs home. So it would be the first time that we say goodbye to a team. W7M was on the precipice of being sent home as well, but they managed to steal the match away after coming back on Oregon against G2, and they stay alive in the tournament. It's still a very long shot that W7M make it out of the groups, but there's a chance. They just need to pull it together tomorrow, and they might be able to do it. Either way, this is between Furia and XSET. There are also obviously some complications with the series, because the 3 bottom teams, including CAG, all have 3 points. You want to try to take it in regulation, without going into overtime. I honestly think you're at a point now where, because these teams all have 3 points, going to OT is considered a loss for some of these squads.
Yeah.
You want to win in regulation if at all possible. You'll take a win in overtime, but it's not there.
Absolutely. Also speaks to, again, the competition at this level. Normally, you know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were like, oh, this team's going to go further, that team's going to go further. But nowadays, it's anyone's game. Fantasy opens up the opening kill here for his team. That means that Furia is once again in the driver's seat, sitting nice and comfy. On this opening at bomb site in particular, it is so nice having the man advantage because there are so many angles that you can be attacked from. There's 2 hatches above, double door on main stairs and double door on square, as well as a possible breach that can be opened up. Look at who he killed, Maverick. That means that the walls get a little bit harder to open because Rare has picked up the mute. We can assume the jammers are going to be denying that breach, and now they got to find a different way around it. 1 grenade left in the Plug of Spirits might be the only way they can try and get anything done on the square side of the map, which might be why Kino is running away from it, because there are other things they gotta focus on first.
Warden and Mirror as the 2 bans mean that Valkyrie is going to play a huge part here. If there's any region that tends to like Valkyrie the most, it's always LATAM. And if you look at the career stats of some of these players, Valkyrie tends to be the top frag getter for a lot of these LATAM squads. It's been a very quick round in terms of timing. And speaking of the Valkyrie, and Fantasy is dead. 4 big kills, and that's it. In the grave he goes. 35 seconds left. A bit of a brief pause. It's an open area execute for XSET as they burn an Adrenal Surge. Still 2 remaining. Might want to use one in the post plant. Wait for it to reset. XSET have only 1 player below 100% HP. That's Spirits himself, and he's already having a better game than he did previously on Finka. So there you go. Handy watches the hatches. Here it comes, and he misses an opportunity on Nikino. He claims the scalp otherwise, but there's still 2 more from XSET there, as down goes all of Furia, leaving Miracle in a 1v3, but he's got the Alda. He can chew through multiple opponents. Diffuser getting planted. Where are you? To drop onto Spirits, but then through the hatch, Miracle goes. The Diffuser will get planted, and this is a miracle mile for Furia if they want to come back. He catches Diaz pulling off of the plant. Diffuser still down. So many bullets left in that Alda still. 24 to his name. You have to check to the left. You walk right in. Oh, Diaz almost misses out on it, but gets it in the end and then pulls the goo out before he gets the final kill. XSET answers back. These teams are tied at 1 apiece.
And the thing about XSET there is that even if Miracle had gotten that for that kill in the small box against the Hibana, Yogg on the block was going up above to try and get that post-man position. So it really was a doomed position for Miracle and for Furia, because even if you've gotten this kill, there is almost no way. Diaz recognized that he whiffed in the Time magazine there. He was not happy with that performance. But yeah, even if you had managed to win that 1 versus 1 in the small box, Yogg was up above. You don't have time to run all the way up the main stairs, and you likely won't be able to win the challenge on the vertical angle neither. So really well played post-man for XSET. They played a safe set. We're not going to toss this round. 1 person play aggressive. I'm going to chill out and take. Now instead, or the postman rather, now instead going upstairs to CEO, this is arguably the most lethal bomb site that we see on Bank, because it comes down to gunfights. There's no real good strategical way to approach this bomb site as a defender. It's not like, oh, deny the wall, barricades and windows, we'll be fine and safe and comfy. No, you got windows towards the bomb site, top of your screen. You can rappel there and get full line of sight to most areas of the bomb site itself. And you can't really play janitors, you can't really play Meetin that well. Some people try and hide inside the top tier 3 elevator, but ultimately it comes down just picking your 1v1 gunfights. It's why we see the Echo, the 1.5 scopes, etc., because you need, if you're Furia, to try and get a kill somewhere on this map. Otherwise, surely it's over. The Warden ban also coming to great effect because Kino has picked up the Ying. And that means that, well, once the Candelas go flying, there is no one who can see anything as long as those Candelas land in a good position.
Warden was banned by Furia, by the way, so
unfortunately,
it's almost like they're inviting this trouble onto themselves because, hey, let's ban the one operator that stops Zofia, that counters the flashbangs, that counters a Glaz, etc. Not that Warden is a staple of Furia's defense, and I got to imagine that as Fantasy dies, by the way, to Gomez on Repel. What do we say about survivability from Fantasy here?
19%.
I have to imagine that a main reason why Warden was banned is because Furia's got some tricks up their sleeves for when they go on to attack. They're going to need some tricks up their sleeves this time as Rare dies too. Furia losing out on 2 key players, and damage being done to Miracle almost costs him his life as well. STK, the first on the board for Furia, closes the gap a little bit between these two teams, but still, a chasm will grow if XSET can get another pick. STK taking some damage now, leaving just Handy as the lone member of Furia at full HP. Everybody on XSET is still all tip-top, and there's a Fink on the board with 3 Adrenal Surges, so if some damage is done, you can get them right back. STK might have been able to see a hand, but doesn't. Repositions. Down goes Handy, so there you go. Speaking of hands, it was the wrong one. Nice shot from STK to cut Gomez off the wire. Miracle's been dropped, so STK will need to collect him and get him back up. Do you have time? Yeah, you know that's a tough prospect, don't you? A little bit of a good rub, and Miracle's back on his feet. Both the players at about 20 HP. Diffuser's still down on the ground, and I think XSET wisely understands, Nick, that this is a kill or be killed scenario. Spirits vaults in, he'll be extremely vulnerable. They're going to try to pinch these 2 players from Furia as XSET now ascends the main stairs. Prolonged action happening at any moment. This round could potentially be over for either team, frankly, but XSET has the upper hand.
No diffuser being picked up either. You can tell that XSET, they know they're low on HP, they know they're stuck in the corner. They're gonna go for the kills, they find one, Diaz that is, leaving STK all alone in the whole wide world with no information. 30 seconds left, no HP. If he had a little bit more, possible for a clutch, but now a single bullet will take him out. It is Spirits looking for his 4th kill, doing a lot better this series. Look at this, like XSET slowing down. Trying to play together, wrap on the window, walk up the staircase. He can't kill you all. He's yacked from behind inside of Janitors, who gets the kill instead. The yellow and red ping came out. They knew exactly where he was. It was actually kind of a wall bang that finished off the final kill. Tactical pause. Oh.
Oddly paced round, frankly, but it's
Very much so.
A call from a tactical pause for Furia as they want to talk amongst themselves and try to nail some things down. Twister, the coach, over top of Furia. I don't know if it's a tactical pause or a technical pause, but they don't have a headset for him, by the way. So I guess he just has to use the player's headset here to talk to the teams, or talk to the players on the team. I do find one thing about the tail end of that round really interesting, and it's that there were still 4 drones available. Because the 2 players from XSET that had access to drones, both of them had been thrown out and could have been repositioned. When you had 40 seconds left and there's only 1 player left, it didn't look like any of those 3 players went on to drones. Now, there was a mute in play.
Yes.
So it's possible that they just simply couldn't get the drones into the spots they wanted. But given the fact that the last player from Furia was standing inside of conference room, you'd have to imagine that you can see him from the top of the main stairs, you can see him from over towards elevators, or at least hear him as he's moving around to try and cover multiple positions. XSET did not seem to care to go into the information game. They had a good idea of they're playing in the bomb site. Spirits doesn't need to rappel in on the window because if we do, at best we have to trade him out, and we don't necessarily know where the last player is. That could have been a crucial mistake. If they don't know the positioning of the last player from Fury and you swing in, you lose that fight. Now it's a 1v2, and you don't really have any time for hard destruction, so the last defender could be in an advantageous spot.
No, you're right. In the beginning of that round as well, to kind of tie together, was also a bit odd in terms of pacing because you got Fantasy aggressively contesting the players of XSET as we expected, and there was an entire team behind him one by one after that fact. So unfortunately, Furia was not able to strike together, but they were in the same plan. They knew that the bomb set was going to fall at some point. They opened up a bunch of line of sights, they took the gunfights to XSET, they lost more than they won, and ultimately they fell. The difficult thing about playing bank defense these days is that nowadays you don't have that many zoom scopes, whereas if you go back to year 1, year 2, you had Jaeger, Smoke, ACOG, you played Doc every single round, etc. It was a lot easier for defenders to challenge. Now, most of the hard meta operators, so we can see, the operators that I picked up right now for this following round, Wamai, Valkyrie, Smoke, Mutant, Jaeger, not a single of those operators have a 1.5x scope unless you're playing specific guns. For example, Wamai MP5K, Smoke FMG, unmute MP5K. If you play a regular, shotgun SMG11 setup on smoke and mute, no 1.5x. If you play the AUG on my, no 1.5x. So it does make your life as a defender a little bit more difficult, unless you pull what we can call like an Apex special or a Direwolf special, where you play Rook, or you play Doc, or you try and pick up the Echo like Fantasy did, where you get the 1.5x that can allow you an easier time on these very long distance combats. So if you see those kind of operators in CO defense, that might be why. However, we won't necessarily go there many more times because it is a less preferred bomb site for most teams on this map, as CO is hard to defend.
Well, this is now a technical pause that was on, I think, XSET's side of things. There was a bit of a delay that was caused because Twister didn't have access to talk to his team, but he ended up sorting it out in the end. I don't know exactly what we're waiting on. I would like to remind you that there is another match that should be ongoing now. I mean, we heard like the Astralis chant. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they are live on the B stream. Again, we never want to chase you away. We enjoy your company. We enjoy your presence. But if you're curious about what's going on with Astralis versus Chiefs, and if you want to see potentially another team qualify to the playoffs and, sadly, our first team go home, that result, should Astralis win, knock Chiefs out, you can go do that on the other stream.
It's true. We have a Bravo stream. I believe it's twitch.tv/Rainbow6Bravo. Bravo.
Apparently, B is also in a technical pause right now. So,
in that case, stay here.
we can just overlay. We can just overlay both of the images at the same time. Overlay inception.
Sure.
One thing that we will talk about when we unpause is that the bomb site that Furia have picked is CEO again.
Yeah.
So they're going to run it back on this bomb site. The rotation for Furia up to this point is a win on lockers down below, which is now open again, a loss on open area, and a loss on CEO. Frankly, I'm going to say that particular round that we just witnessed on CEO was actually the most lopsided in favor of XSET of the 3 rounds so far. So clearly, this timeout's been taken by Furia to discuss what went wrong. How do we fix it? Number one, maybe don't have fantasy hero play and try to get a pick early on. Maybe as an echo, don't toss your life away so quickly. Again, that survivability rate of fantasy is always going to come up. But more importantly, you take the tactical pause because you think, okay, maybe we can knock out a win on CEO. There were some good things I saw, Twister says to the team, and then we go back downstairs and we play our game on lockers again because, frankly, it was XSET in many ways beating themselves on that first bomb site, not necessarily Furia being the sharper team. There was chaos amidst the ranks of Furia, and I know that might not, or amongst XSET, and that might not make Furia fans all that happy, but it's the truth, frankly.
It is, and we always talk about some teams, they thrive in the chaos. Some teams are good at creating chaos, and it is a viable and valuable factor because as the pressure and intensity of these matches go up, when, what's at stake, for example, qualifying for playoffs, when you find yourself in this super chaotic situation where you gotta make a split-second decision that has to be the right one, it gets a lot more difficult as the pressure increases alongside it. Right now, while we're seeing this technical pause, we are seeing this is rare from Furia. You guys can't see it, but we can. Just swapping between multiple operators. So maybe Furia is still discussing the possibility of what they want to bring to this bomb site. I'm curious. But he did go back onto the mute as he did before, so maybe not.
Already a better game from Spirits, as we talked about. That was something that really needed to be focused on after the disappointing match they had earlier against Team Liquid. Spirits did not show up the way that you expect him to do on the battlefield. He's currently sitting at 3-2. Which is a far cry from the 1-12 that he went, which was obviously not ideal. Kino had 19 kills, if I remember correctly, in that matchup. 18 kills in that matchup. Unlikely that Kino is going to replicate that success again, but either way. I mean, I also think that Gomez not having a great game was really covered over because of how bad Spirit's game was. And how bad was Spirit's game? His rating was a .02.
Yeah.
Almost a .00. We've seen a couple .00s before.
It's rare.
Well, no, actually, Rare's doing pretty well on Furia.
Okay.
Who was it? I think at SI, which was our last international event, there was only one 0.00, and I think it was Static on Sandbox, which was, if I remember correctly, I think Static went like 0-7 or 0-8 or something like that. And that, I mean, that was it. It was a 0.00 rating, and it's the last flat 0 we've seen, so Spirit's coming awfully close. Now, again, we want to talk about these stats, not necessarily painting the whole picture. So, yes, XSET might have lost 7-5 to Team Liquid, and yes, Spirits might have gone 1-12, but Spirits is also guiding the team forward. The IGLing that Spirits is providing to this roster is in no way quantifiable with cost or his rating through Siege GG or any in-game metric. And I think you have to credit Spirits an awful lot for those 5 rounds that XSET prevailed in. And again, that is not tied into your rating because there's just no way for us to rank that.
No, there's not, and this goes for IGLs, in-game leaders as we call them, captains, support players, any kind of work or duty that you provide, or service if you will, inside the server that doesn't go on a scoreboard still has a ton of value. And to some teams, in North America, we always talk about Sonics. Super on that team is a player who's not known to get a ton of kills, maybe 1 or 2 a match, but the Sonics would still prevail and get #1 in North America, winning the national tournament because the 4 other players around that IGL, around that captain can call the strategies, can play at such a high level. No different here. Spirits is less experienced than Super, of course, is newer at this level of play, has only been here for a couple of, I was going to say a year and a half or so, but the value that he can bring as an IGL and the potential of his capabilities as a gunner as well, when he does show up, is one of the more unmatched kind of players. Alems from BDS, similar fashion. One of the most mechanically gifted IGLs that we have. Not one of those boomer boys like, let's say, Troy Canadian, Fabian, and myself, because we're not flashy.
I mean, Fabian's not an IGL, he's an analyst.
Also true. Currently. Only half an analyst.
Looking for opportunities, by the way. Just for full transparency, you might notice that both of the coaches are without headsets. I think for Twister, he just doesn't have a headset, which is why he had to use the one of his teammate. But Budega's microphone stopped working, which is why we are now currently in a technical pause. See, there's a difference in these terms.
They could just start yelling.
A tactical pause. God knows Budega is loud enough to easily overpower the white noise in the headsets. It looks like they got him a new microphone. I don't know if it worked or not. Also, the question that needs to be answered is, his microphone stopped working. Does that mean that he wasn't able to talk during the tactical timeout? Because if that's the case, keep in mind both coaches get to talk during it.
Yes.
So if Budega wasn't able to speak to his team, but Twister was, then you need to allow Budega that same privilege that Twister had with his squad. Either way, this has obviously blunted whatever momentum XSET was starting to build towards as they won those 2 rounds in a row.
Yep.
And it certainly blunts whatever idea and understanding was fresh in their minds about that CEO defense. Because, again, the objective location that is locked in right now is CEO, which is the top floor that Furia just lost.
It's true, and people might say, oh, it's only been a couple of minutes, not a big deal, but the feeling that you have in the server, you know, like for your opponent saying, okay, we know how they play, we have a good idea of what they're going to do, they're going to repeat that same thing, we're going to adapt. That's pretty much going to disappear in a few minutes because Rainbow Six Siege and most FPS games in competitive esports, it's all about short-term memory. Things aren't meant to last in your head for a very long time, and the feeling of feeling out your opponents in the server also fades quickly because of that. So they are still going to go CO, but the question now comes, how prepared are they given that technical pause that they have for a brief moment, which has been resolved.
It's finished! We're back in the game. So what I speculated is actually what happened, Nicholas.
Okay.
Basically, when they took the timeout on Furia's side of things, Budega could not speak to his team. So the whole timeout goes with Budega being unable to speak to the team, and then they get him a proper headset that is now working and functioning, and now Budega is able to talk to his team, and now we're in the game. So XSET getting a little bit of a refresher and primer right before we launch back in, but you're correct. There are players and professional athletes who can tell you about a match 4 months ago and the minutia of a round or a certain play, etc. And there are people who play Rainbow Six who are in the exact same boat. Are the players on XSET like that? I don't know. I mean, that's a question I can answer. I don't think any of us can answer that question except for the players on XSET themselves. All I know is that Furia have changed some things up. They've changed up their roster. They're bringing the Valkyrie. Instead, there's no Echo on the board. Still a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, minor things really. Still same aggression. Fantasy is still fighting.
And Fantasy almost dies early on yet again as he gets into a fight down by Printer in open area. Some spray through the wall. Both he and Yaga taking some damage.
Yeah, he stays alive though, and with both the Jaeger and the Momai on the board for Furia as well, that means they can play, you know, safe-ish in corners on the bomb site. Want to feel the grenades as much from the windows at least, but there are still this threat from down below. It is Spirits creeping, lingering around, getting some yellow pinks and drone information. If you are on the attack inside, that's some verticality right there. I didn't see it myself, and now that Spirits, it took a bunch of damage in the process. If you're XSET, you gotta actually slow down your gameplay and start looking for these Valkyrie cameras, because if you can't find them because you don't have an IQ, that means disaster. And you see it right here. When you're standing still as a player looking towards the ceiling in the corners, that is a player trying to be efficient with his time, looking for those black eye Valkyrie cameras while just waiting for his team to get up next to him. So
A bomb has been located.
you see them just kind of scout the room.
It's a nice play, though, in order to try and damage XSET, but there's Fantasy again, that survivability rate. He got 4 kills at the tail end of the first round, or second round, rather, and then died early. Died in round number 3, died in round number 4, and hasn't really done all that much other than just winnow down whatever HP Spirits and Yaga had. There's a final Adrenal Surge that now goes out. Spirits is close to full HP, but that's as close as he's going to get, and now he's at no HP because STK punishes him. And E1D burned out by Kino now to try and pin down the remaining players of Furia all across the map. They decide to swing instead. STK is really feeling one. And even though he's only got 3 kills, they've been relatively high impact so far. The Buck hops in the window of Yaga and now can very easily see around the shield. And there you go. But let's talk about feeling it. STK a huge kill. He's got more lined up for that window. Bit of a blind spot on main stairs. He doesn't know exactly where they're going to come from. Could Diaz be the next one in, the next target for STK? And a third head for the Mantle.
This shield is causing so many troubles because there's only one grenade pocket of Gomez. He's nowhere nearby to find it. So STK stays alive, so does the shield.
And there's STK again. How does XSET not know how to deal with him? This one, Mai has gotten all of his kills from the same area. Finally, Kino takes him down. But Furia has such an advantage with only 10 seconds left that it seems almost impossible that XSET will come out ahead. Gomez blows himself up, and it's Kino now in a 1v2. It's doable. 2 seconds left. All he has to do is find the last player. Where are you, Rare? Hiding is where you are. Furia takes the round. Kino runs out of time. I want to see how Gomez blew himself up, by the way, because that grenade kill was so poorly timed, and frankly could have been a very winnable round.
It could have been, and I mean, they struggled with his shield next to stock the entire round. That grenade that Gomez took himself out with, that was the one grenade they needed earlier in the round to take down the shield. We don't get a replay, I don't think, but he was like near that CO wall, maybe inside CO, maybe on the rappel even. Cooked the grenade for too long or something like that. Maybe it hit a wall, bounced back. I'm not sure, but either way, that was a very winnable round that all of a sudden became less winnable because a 2v1 was turned to a 1 versus 1 with very little time left. It happens, unfortunately. There used to be this saying in Europe that it's a Panix grenade, because the good old French player called Panix, he would very often, way too often, end up grenading himself as well, going all the way back to year 1 or year 2 of the Rainbow Six Siege program. Got a history there. Open area. We'll go back here once again. Last time the XSET that came out on top, it was that 1 versus 2 situation between Diaz and Yogg against the Miracle. And it was a rather successful round for XSET across the entire board. Furia is starting off strong in the same similar fashion, starting upstairs, looking for drones, denying those rotational areas, putting down some musty pests to try and deny information, possibly gain some. And up at the lineup-wise, well, the only real big difference here is that we're bringing the IQ on the Gomez. That means that we are now in this position that, yeah, the Valkyrie cameras are a problem. We keep getting spotted, they have information, and we're struggling against it. So we are now forced to attack a repick onto the IQ, whose sole purpose, the only real value you gain, is to counter the Valkyrie. Sure, you can see the Banshees, the Evil Eyes, the Jammers, whatever, but the real reason why you pick her is simply just to find the cameras.
We've seen a couple IQs show up. The North American teams in particular have quite enjoyed her. We've seen her last when you and I casted OXG just a couple matches ago. I will say, Furia on this defensive play have been looking for early picks through windows, through barricades, and on runouts. It's a viable strategy if you're playing on high ping, by the way. If you catch them before they catch you and you go for a swing, they might be completely unprepared for it. It's another open area defense, by the way. I'm actually quite amazed that they have not gone back downstairs to the bomb site that they won early on, which is Locker CCTV. Also, I just want to weigh in for 1 second on that previous round. Even though Furia won it, it's not exactly the most confidence-inspiring win because it did come down to a 1v1, and there was 2 huge errors committed by XSET. Number 1, not clearing out that shield. Number 2, Gomez nading himself. So if both of those things get swung around on, I honestly think XSET have a very strong chance of taking the round.
I get the statement, and we see here both teams actually playing it slower, XSET taking the time they need, and surprisingly, Furia not contesting any gunfights right now. Fantasy himself has not really fired a single bullet towards an enemy just yet, and this means that the time will be taken down, might be favoring the defenders you might think. But the thing is, once XSET they get going, they get very explosive. This is where our eyes gotta be on Spirits when the execute comes around, because he'll be leading the charge with this Finka LMG. Gonna open up that soft destruction above the reinforced wall, chuck a grenade, clear out the janitor, and then the wall can get opened up. That's gonna allow XSET to now capitalize onto the bomb site from multiple angles, as Yug is also in the window.
These teams have been trading these opening picks back and forth. It hasn't really given any great indicator as to who goes on to win the round, but only 30 seconds left, and XSET have the 2 kills onto Furia. Furia looking for more, but they aren't really coming up with anything at all. Empty-handed it is. Nade tossed in by Spirits. He thinks there's one around the corner. Miracle tries to get to the bomb site, can't do it. STK on the flank. A flawless round, no longer available with Gomez dropping. But boy, oh boy, this is going to be tough. STK gets droned out, and he doesn't even make it past the blue doorway. XSET regain the lead by picking off STK. And just like that, open area again goes in XSET's favor.
And I think this just shows what the strengths of Furia and XSET both are. Furia are the strongest when they are fighting their opponent, not when they're setting up a fortress and problems for XSET to problem solve. XSET's not a team that we're thinking, wow, these guys are so strategical. They know how to grenade shields and clear the aces perfectly, because we saw in their zero attack, they didn't do that correctly. They jumped in the window, took the gunfight, they lost it, and that's why Furia won the round. So, Furia, play to your own strengths, and of course, don't play into XSET strengths.